Hello and welcome to another episode of Team Markey TV. Today we're going to be hanging out and celebrating Pride with some of Team Markey who are also part of the LGBTQ plus community and our allies. So our first guests today are Grace Fernandez, Jen Meekum, and Ben Ruppberg. So if everyone wants to just go around and introduce themselves with your name, what pronouns you use, and what you do on the campaign, that would be great.
My name is Ben Ruppberg. I use she, her series pronouns, and I am the Metro Northwest field organizer for Senator Markey's re-election campaign.
Hi, my name is Jen Meekum, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a field organizer on the North Shore.
Hi, I'm Grace Fernandez. I use she, hers pronouns, and I am a fellow, but I mostly do graphic design and then some things with the DMs.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Jen, let's start with you. Do you want to just tell us what Pride means to you in the broadest sense?
Yeah, so I am kind of new to the queer community. I think all of us have our stories of coming out, and whether or not that was knowing at 3 or 7 or 40. And so something that has been really important to me is that the origins of Pride are rioting, right? That people need to demand their rights. And so this year I am using the month of Pride as a space to kind of ally myself with other allies and folks in the LGBTQ community who are also right now like using that voice to fight for the rights of people in the BIPOC community.
I think what Jen said really resonated with me. I didn't realize I was trans until 2016 when I was 19 years old. So I'm still fairly new to this. And yeah, to me, Pride means organizing, fighting for queer liberation, which is tied to Black liberation, all kinds of liberation. I got my start organizing on the Yes I'm Free campaign for trans rights, the statewide ballot initiative on whether we'd be allowed to, whether we trans people would be allowed to continue going to grocery stores, libraries, subways without being harassed, kicked out for who we are. And we won, which was great, but it showed me that, you know, whether it's on the ballot or in the streets, it's a constant fight for our rights as queer trans people and for, you know, woke and all other marginalized communities.
I feel like a lot of the like feelings I have also already been said, but I feel like also in the terms of like doing a lot of learning this month, I feel like when I first came out, I was just like, cool. And then went to a women's college, like women-centered college. So they're like also very much in a little bubble. And I remember I think it was the Stonewall anniversary, they were giving out pins and it was like, you've heard of Pride, get ready for wrath. And there was like a quiz and I like miserably failed the quiz about Stonewall and about the origins of Pride and things. And it was just a very good wake-up call of like, oh, I do have so much learning to do about what has come before me. So that was my like going into this Pride, also like dedicating myself to recognizing all of those things.
Yeah, I really like that perspective, Grace. I feel like there's always more learning to be done, even when you think you know something, you know, there's often other angles or whatever. So yeah, I've been making a list of, or I had been making a list of some content to consume for Pride Month, some movies and some books, and now I've really just expanded that, and I just feel like, yeah, this really strong drive. Obviously, it's a privilege that I didn't previously know about a lot of these histories and issues on a deeper level, but I'm grateful for like that opportunity to start learning now. So I totally agree, especially since we can't celebrate in the ways that we were planning to. How do you guys usually celebrate Pride? I know that the past couple of years I've been to Boston Pride and that was pretty much my plan again this year, but I'm curious what you guys have done in the past, or how you're planning on celebrating this year, before things changed.
I tend not to do that much for the whole month. I do love me a good Boston Pride. I've been to each of the past 3 ones. I remember in 2018 going to Pride to recruit people for our campaign, which was real heavy and meaningful day. I remember someone like giving me a hug after I signed him up for a shift because he wanted to be part of it that badly. This month, I'm probably gonna try to wear more dresses or something.
I feel like it's very mixed. I usually go to Pride, go to a parade, like Boston Pride, or go to Rhode Island for Pride or something. Last year was the craziest thing because my grandma gave me Pride spending money, and that just really blew my mind. Like, my grandpa showed up with an envelope, and it was like, "This is from your grandma." It's like spending money for Pride. I was like, "What is happening? Like, is this real life?" Like, this is the strangest grandma story to have. But so that was very special to me. So usually I go do something, but obviously that won't be happening this year. But like I said before, I think it's an opportunity to do more learning and supporting other organizing that's happening.
So last year was my first year in the US while being out, and so I went to Boston Pride. Was kind of overwhelmed by the amount of banks that had Pride gear, and I was just like, nothing like hanging corporations from your neck. But I also was working a campaign, so I got to participate in a local Pride parade, which was really sweet because it was a place I knew, restaurants I knew. I definitely in the past have frequented more queer restaurants at that time. There's an amazing local place in Salem that is just the best. It's just a queer haven, and the food is fantastic and local. And then this year, well, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, not yet, not even 2 weeks, I sent Ben a photo, and I made a Pride cocktail, which was literally just soda water and vodka, but I layered 8 types of fruit so that it colored the rainbow. And Ben was like, "Oh yeah, I guess it is Pride." And I was like, "Happy Riot Month." So I think that's about all.
That was a really delightful photograph to receive.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately. I've seen some reports from other cities. I don't know if I've seen any from Boston, but I've seen reports from other cities talking about combining, to a certain extent, recent Black Lives Matter marches with, some sort of march or protest that is in connection with the queer community, which I think is a really interesting concept, right? But obviously there's a fine line, and it's hard to know exactly who should be leading those things. You don't want to be taking over, but obviously, as you I think said, Ben, liberation, queer liberation, Black liberation, it's all entangled. Yeah, do you guys have any more ideas on how we can respond and respect the current crises in our country, both COVID and the backlash against police brutality and for Black Lives Matter this month, in whether that's in person or generally online?
I think that it's important as queer people, I'm a queer white person, important to still be critical of police. I remember last August when there was a straight pride parade in Boston that was largely white supremacists marching under the straight pride banner. There were a lot of queer counter protesters there, and the police sided with the straight pride marchers. I remember hearing about a couple of friends who had pepper spray from the cops blown in their faces from the wind. Some like young trans friends of mine. And so to me, standing in solidarity with Black people in America, especially Black queer people in America, is important to me. Whether that's talking, reading, protesting, donating to bail funds. It's important for me to remember the ways that queer and trans people are also more likely to be targeted by police, more likely to be forced into so-called, like crimes of survival. And so, it's one fight, and I really love being surrounded by people who feel the same way I do. Markey. It's a good home here.
Yeah, I think I would just add that, as a queer person who hasn't been out that long, or like, just didn't realize I was queer for a while, that like, although I'm cognizant of portions of the like really difficult and painful past of people fighting for the rights I currently have as a queer individual, that like in general, I have not like felt those effects, specifically because I'm white. Like until last year when I graduated and like chopped off all my hair, like was very straight passing, like, so appeared as a white straight person. And so I think just like added on to what I was saying about allying and like working for justice for the BIPOC community, that like wherever that intersects with also continuing to support and protect the lives of other queer and trans and like however you identify, like communities who are like non-gender conforming or like whatever, that is super important to me, and also a space that I'm like choosing to learn and lean into, because I know that is not something that has like impacted my life in huge amounts of ways. I mean, I grew up in the South in a place where it wasn't like really okay to be gay, but I didn't know I was gay at 3. So I didn't like, when I came out a couple years ago, I didn't have 15 years of just like being told that portion of my personality was a terrible thing. Like, and so I think being cognizant of like the historical trauma and pain for others, and like how I can be supportive and in the best way, which often probably just means like lending my body and voice and following.
I guess all I would add is like, as a Native person, I think that a lot of like my thinking on it is all through like a decolonization like lens, and then in that way, like in a lot of ways it is like so closely tied. I've done a lot of like learning about how like LGBTQ identities existed before like colonialism in America or in like all across the globe, and in those ways like defunding the police or abolishing the police is as much decolonization as like queer liberation is decolonization, and really like they are all part of that same colonial like oppressor system. So I think for me, I look at a lot of it like in that way, and I know that is because I'm Native, but so I see it all like so very closely tied as things like move and get better.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking a decent amount lately about how I have more social capital than most probably. I'm definitely in the top part of not that it's, oppression Olympics or whatever people would want to say. But yeah, I mean, I am a straight passing white woman, so it's really on me. And yeah, unfortunately, I can't really be out in the streets right now. So that's frustrating because really I do think there's a lot that there's a responsibility that I feel like I have, and that I owe to people who I think, as you said, Jen, really gave me the ability to be able to just sort of, pass through my day to day without a ton of oppression, which I'm very grateful for. And it's really important to pay that back and balance that out, I think. Ed has a great record on LGBTQ plus issues. It's very disappointing. I know that he's disappointed that he can't walk in Boston Pride this year. I know he looks forward to it. So I'm very disappointed that we all won't get to do that. But I know that he is as well. I'm wondering if there was anything about his work that stands out to any of you or, influence your decision to support him and to join Team Markey. Ben, I know that you have to head out. So if you want to just give an answer for that real quick. You can go first.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. And before I go, I want to say it's been really wonderful to be here. Love y'all. The fact that Ed voted against the Defense of Marriage Act back in the 90s, when we didn't even have a Democratic president willing to support marriage equality until 2012, and Barack Obama didn't feel able to support equality during his first run in 2008. Like, Ed's 20 years ahead of the rest of the party, and that's pretty great to me. All right, I gotta run. Much love to all y'all.
Yes, his work, but also just what I had sort of told you this morning about, Jen, you don't know, I dug through my pictures this morning because I was like, I think I saw Ed at my first Pride. I'm pretty sure. So I sent them to Liv from 2017. I have these pictures that I took of Ed at Pride because it was my first Pride parade. And I was like, that's our senator. And my friends were like, who are you talking? What do you mean? And I was like, no, that's our senator. That's Senator Ed Markey. He's in the Pride parade. And I was so excited because I was like, that's my senator. And Elizabeth Warren was there and Maura Healey was there. And I was like, these are our, they're all here. And my friends had no idea who I was talking about. And I was like, no, this is really cool. These are our representatives and they're in the Pride parade. So that was my first, and just from that moment, I just accepted very much that Ed was a champion on LGBTQ things. And then in looking at it was obviously confirmed that that is true. I think Defense of Marriage Act is definitely the biggest one for me that also has stood out. While there are other things, I think that was the one that for me, I was like, oh, I wouldn't say ahead of his time because yes, ahead of his time, but also he was just doing the right thing. And just no matter what the time span is, has continued to be doing the right thing. But that was the one that stood out and was like, oh yeah, this is not new. He's been doing this for a long time. It's not just because it's now the late 20 teens that he is all in. He's been all in. So, but yeah, seeing him at my first Pride was very cool.
That's so cool. I think I got to Pride too late last year and didn't get to see him there. But I think, honestly, echoing what Grace and Ben have both said about laws in the 90s, I also feel like Ed's work as a defender of workers' rights has had a really big impact on queer and trans rights at workplaces, which is super crucial. I remember my first day on this campaign, just walking into the office and being in a space where we said our names and pronouns. And I just had not been in that space before and did not understand the power of giving people the ability to speak their identity and respect that communally. And I understand that that's campaign culture for us, but it also was totally representative of the way Ed has lived his life and also worked legislation. And so for me, yeah, not only his defense of marriage equality and his work for workers' rights, he also inspires the people around him and the people who work for him to create more inclusive and just workplaces, which is desperately needed and something that I really needed to participate in, engage in, and see models for myself.
Thank you, Jen. That was really powerful. These are good. These are great stories, all of those. I think for me, yeah, it really is just like his belief in like justice and sort of equity for all people across really any sort of any issue, any way you slice it. I think it's just who he is, and it's how he was raised. Those are his family values. And even though he is like an old white Irish Catholic man, he doesn't really like allow that to impact or bias any of his views the way, unfortunately, many politicians still do. And he really just believes in creating equal rights under the law for all people. So I definitely see that through his long-standing and often a little bit atypical, I guess, for the times, like stance on things, and it's really great to see it. And that's a really good point, Jen. It definitely shows in the people that we've built on Team Markey. So thank you both, and thank you to Ben for joining us today. When we get back after this commercial break, we're going to talk to a couple more members of Team Markey about how Ed's record has impacted them and their life. Stay tuned.
The modern-day LGBTQ plus movement was founded upon the 1969 Stonewall riots against police brutality. LGBTQ plus women of color led the movement against the systemically oppressive system and paved the way for progress so that today we can see the results. Today, Black LGBTQ plus people continue to be on the front lines of the modern-day civil rights movement. It's clear that we cannot discuss the impacts of one movement without discussing the other. This year, as we celebrate Pride Month and the hard-fought LGBTQ plus rights victories that we have today, we must also recognize the work we still have to do in dismantling systemic racism, in ending police brutality, in fighting for restorative justice. Today, we see the plague of police violence continue against Black and trans bodies, and we know that it has to change. It is time to dismantle those systems of oppression that have plagued our country. For too long, our country's systems have been set up for the privileged few, from criminal justice to healthcare to housing to environmental justice. Throughout history, we have seen that change is catalyzed by moments like these. Moments in the face of pain and anger. Pride is what now emerges. And out of that pride comes progress. It is a reminder that we owe so much of our progress to the Black and brown activists who have put their bodies on the lines over the years, and it is a reminder that righteous anger and radical hope can affect change. In his 1967 speech, Other America, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "A riot is the language of the unheard." He goes on to declare that our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. We delayed in the winters leading up to the 1969 Stonewall riots. We delayed in the winters leading up to George Floyd's death and the deaths of so many others. Today, we delay no more. Today, we say it loudly and clearly. Trans rights are human rights. LGBTQ plus rights are human rights, and Black lives matter. We will fight from this day on to make sure that this is the transformative moment in American history.
Welcome back to Team Markey TV. Up next, we're going to talk to Jody and Leah Cloney about what Pride means to them. So if you guys want to just introduce yourselves, you can go right ahead, and then we'll talk about what Pride means to us.
Hello, I am her daughter, Leah Cloney, and she is my mom.
That is true. Do you want to say when we started or why we started celebrating Pride?
We started celebrating Pride because I'm trans. That's it. That's basically it.
And I'm Jody Cloney, and I'm the scheduler and budget director for the Markey campaign.
Thank you both for being here. So how do you usually celebrate Pride? You know, in a couple months ago, what were you planning on doing this month, basically?
Well, we have a flag, like right over there. It's outside though, you can't see it.
This is the first year that we hung up the flag because we did so much harder to do anything else this year. Like we're not able to go. Leah has gone to North Shore Pride and other Pride events. Usually that we try to go to some. Sometimes she wants to, sometimes she doesn't. She's been excited about it, but usually we go to like, you know, some Pride events. I think because Leah has had like her identity as part of her life since she was 4. She doesn't feel that same like this is Pride the way other people do, right? She's like, this has sort of been incorporated to her life whenever it happened. It's not like, oh, I get to celebrate being trans this month. She does it whenever she wants to because she's been she socially transitioned when she was 4. So she doesn't really remember a time before she was trans. So I feel like Pride feels different to her than it does to people who had to like
This is factually accurate.
thank you. Pride feels different to her than people who have actually we've always accepted her. I think she's never not been proud.
Yeah.
Although when you were 6 and I offered to take you to your first Pride, you told me you didn't want to go because you weren't proud of yourself because you waited so long to tell us you were trans. You were embarrassed.
I don't remember that.
I know you don't remember that, but that is what she told us for her first Pride. She's like, no, I'm not proud of myself. I waited so long to tell you I was trans. She waited to the ripe old age of 4.
I know, it's so long.
So yeah, so
4 whole years. Too long.
too long. You probably said something before then. I just didn't.
And you're just so mean to me.
What was I mean to you, really?
No.
She once told me that when she was a baby and said goo goo gaga, that meant I'm a girl.
I remember that.
Oh, what did you say it meant?
I said it meant, I want to be a girl. Please stop. Girl, stop.
You said it meant I want to be a girl. Please put me in a dress.
Please put me in a dress. Shut up and dress.
Yes, you did want. But unfortunately, I couldn't speak baby, so poor Olivia has lost control of this, and she asked one question. We introduced ourselves, and Olivia is like, these two should just have their own show. Like, I don't know why.
I do agree with you that you should, but that's an amazing story. Like, you know, there was a time really not that long ago at all, and it's hard for me to really conceive of that, but there's a time like not long ago at all where people would wait for decades before, you know, coming out or accepting themselves. And I mean, yeah, but that's a really funny story, Leah. Yeah, I'm disappointed that we're not going to get to march in Pride this year. I was really excited about that when I realized that would be happening back in, you know, January and February when I was coming on to the campaign. I wonder what you guys think about celebrating Pride in these times, and sort of how you're thinking of making up for what we've lost and how you're still thinking of connecting. I mean, I totally agree with you. Like, I feel like I try and celebrate with you know, my friends and the media I consume, and just, you know, different aspects of my life. I try and celebrate identity, but you know, it still would have been fun to celebrate this month. So I'm wondering what you guys are thinking about that, if anything.
You the media?
I know I was making a list of, you know, shows to watch and movies to watch, books to read and that sort of thing. And that was my plan. And I mean, that's now even more so my plan, I guess. So
is there any stuff that you want to do for Pride that we haven't, like, because we can't go to a parade or we can't go to a big event? Is there other stuff that you want to do to celebrate Pride?
Well, we already have the flag. I already mentioned that.
Yes, we have the flag. Is there other stuff you're thinking about doing?
Not really.
No, not really. Leah has never actually marched in a Pride parade. I know. I marched 2 years ago in the Boston Pride Parade as part of the Yes on 3 campaign, because I was ops director for that campaign as well. So I did march in that, but because it was my job, I didn't bring my child with me, my 9-year-old with me, because I had to actually work and be a grown up. So she didn't actually march in Pride that year. But she's gone to Pride parades just as a participant, like viewing.
Yep, I'm the reason why she's a campaign person.
That is true. I am the reason why she's a campaign. I am a campaign person.
Yep,
That's
enough.
That's what?
The reason why that's happened.
Yes. So before Yes on 3, I worked in a totally different industry, but because of Leah, I decided I had a boring office job. Yes. Yep. I still do the boring office stuff for the campaign.
I know. You get to meet cool people just sitting in a little cubicle.
It's true. I do get to meet more cool people working on campaigns. But yeah, so when the Yes on 3 vote came out, I decided that it was like, time to get off the sidelines. And I always say there's a time when donating money isn't enough, and that felt like the time for us. So I, left my job and got a job with the campaign, and I was office manager, and then pretty quickly they moved me up to ops director. Huh?
She's so great.
I mean, thank you.
I miss getting to chat with everyone in the office, but definitely you, Jody.
I miss the old office, like the one before the one that we have now.
Oh, you miss WeWork?
Like the big thing.
I don't know.
Which like office? With the coffee. And
oh my god, I miss
that. Ouch.
Do you mean WeWork, the first office where you made Leah made the only time she ever came into WeWork, she made the office before we moved into the new office.
I think we went
she made
twice.
her Green New Deal Halloween costume. It was Halloween, and she made her costume. Like, were you with the campaign then, Olivia?
No.
Did you see it?
No,
so
we made it. I need to see that.
Yeah, so we made other members of the comms team help her make a costume so she looked like the Bill from Schoolhouse Rock. But it was the Green New Deal Bill.
Mr. Bill.
And then she went and trick-or-treated at Ed's house afterwards. So you were a Bill. She learned the song, and she went over and hung.
Bill.
You don't remember it now because that was months ago. But yeah, so we went over. So that's why you like The Office. You got to hang out with.
I think I went there twice.
You went there twice. You got to hang out with Liz and Taylor, and turn yourself into the Green New Deal.
Mm-hmm. Jody, did Ed's record influence your decision to join the campaign at all? I mean, it's been very recent that I've been learning about his record on these issues because I didn't grow up in Massachusetts, so I learned something new about Ed every day. So recently it's been that history, but I'm wondering if that had any impact on you. Or
I think one of the things so there's lots of things that drew me to work for Ed's campaign. I think one of them was that he has been consistently supporting like LGBTQ rights throughout his career, and it's not like it hasn't been his primary, like Markey will say his issue, like, right, it's not his most forefront issue, right? Like, so he hasn't been shouting from the rooftops, look at me, I'm for LGBTQ rights, but every time he's voted with LGBTQ people, which to me actually means a lot, because it's like he's not doing it because he's supposed to. Like, that's legitimately how he feels. Like, he's always supported these things, even though it wasn't necessarily how he was winning hearts and minds. You know what I mean? Like, I think Massachusetts has always been pretty progressive, but he wasn't doing it for the pomp and circumstance, right? He was doing it but also I support Ed because like, he supports so many progressive issues. Like, here, I'm a firm believer that Leah can't live her best life unless like all marginalized people can live their best life. And nobody lives their best life when there isn't clean air or water. So I just feel like those things, I want her to not, we try not to focus on her just being a trans person. She's a lot of things. And so, like, in the same way I want my politicians to be a lot of things too, right? Like, you look so offensive. You're like,
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I had a similar thought.
First of all,
He was voting on these bills at a time where it wasn't like it, again, hard to conceive of, and we're just very lucky to be living in that time. But there was a time where it wasn't, even like you said, even for like being a senator from a blue state, like it was very cool to learn that he was always on the right side of those issues. And I do think it kind of ties back to the values of like, yeah, just like equity for everyone and like.
right, yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, I think it's important that we have elected officials that care about indubitably that have lots of things that they care about, right? Like, it doesn't always, you can't win everything at the same time, but like, he shows up every time, and that's, I think, what matters is to move things forward and do the right thing. What do you like about Ed?
it's quite goofy.
You think he's goofy?
Yeah.
What do you think is goofy about him?
Especially the sneaker thing.
Oh, you liked his sneakers?
Yeah.
Yes.
Air Jordans.
They're not Air Jordans, are they? I think they're not. I think, but
Tested by myself.
the other thing Leah really liked about Ed is that when we went trick-or-treating there, he kept giving her more. Ed only gives out full-size candy bars.
Wow.
And he kept giving her like more. He's like, you can have some for the car, and you can have, like, he kept giving her more and more. He's like, don't worry what your mother says. Like, this is how he won Leah's vote.
Even though I can't vote because I'm not 18.
No, you can't. It's a bummer. She always comes with me to vote, though, right?
And Dad.
Yep. Make sure we vote how you want.
Yep.
One time when we went to vote, she was like, what are the R's next to the people's names? Like, when you go and you like check in to vote.
It doesn't stand for Reddit.
And she was like, I'm like, it stands for Republican. And she shouted so loudly. She's like, people admit they're Republicans. And like, the cop who's there to make sure you don't make any political statements within a certain area is like giving me the evil eye because my small child is raging against Republicans inside the voting area. So
I have no memory of this, probably, but I believe that would be something I could do.
yeah, shouting on the top of the
Ability.
people.
That's very fun.
People admit they're Republican.
So
That's an incredible story, Leah. Do you have anything you'd like to say to trans kids out there, or any advice you'd like to give them, or just anyone who's watching? I give you the mic. The floor is yours.
Eat some turkey. It makes you feel happy.
no, but like, do
What?
you have anything that like, any advice you have for trans kids besides eat turkey?
Nope. Just eat turkey.
Well, I mean, you've said other things in the past, like
Be yourself
be yourself.
and don't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And eat turkey.
What about like, what do you like about being trans, or what do you not like about it?
Don't like because I'm afraid people will hate me for it. J.K. Rowling.
Oh, like, I don't know if Olivia can say that in there, but yes.
I think we can say that Ed and Team Markey are staunchly and firmly anti-J.K. Rowling. It's fine.
Yeah.
And Tay.
Yes. But Emma Watson said awesome things about trans people. So like, fight back, and that makes you feel better.
Foot clap.
So what do you like anything about being trans?
I like because it makes me feel free.
Yeah, you once told me it's pretty good to be trans because you already have done the thing people don't want you to do, so you never have to worry about that ever again.
People hate trans people. Transphobia. It's a phobia. Don't know why, but it is.
And that's hard.
Yep.
But people like me and you
Mm-hmm.
working to fix that,
Mm-hmm.
and Ed.
And Ed. Discreetly doing it in the shadows.
Do you think he's discreetly doing it in the shadows?
Like,
He's a ninja for trans rights.
We needed a title for this episode. That's a pretty good episode title or something. I don't know.
and
Ninja,
Markey in the shadows.
ninja for trans rights. If I was going to say something to kids who are watching out there, you know, one of the things that I've been thinking about with Pride is
Eat turkey.
Can you let me be serious for 1 second? I am not as committed to the turkey cause as you are. So what I was going to say too.
I'm being serious.
No, one of the things that I have been thinking a lot about with trans is I know, you know, it's been almost 8 years ago now. So when Leah transit, yeah, right? 8 plus 4 is 12. Yeah. Okay. So Leah's going to be 12 this month. Her birthday's during Pride. It was actually on her birthday that the Supreme Court ruled for gay marriage. It was like one of my favorites of your birthdays.
I don't know what birthday that was.
I know what birthday it was, if that helps. It was the one we went to Florida.
Oh, wait. First or second time?
The first time.
Ah.
So, but what I was going to say is what I've been thinking about is, you know, even back then, which wasn't that long ago, but long enough ago that it wasn't, is Pride is one of those times where I feel like I bump into so many people who draw like so much positive feelings from meeting Leah and seeing like, you know, I feel like she's like walking, breathing, living evidence that the fight is working. Because in all honesty, if people hadn't been working so hard for so long, if, you know, trans women of color hadn't thrown bricks 50 years ago at Stonewall, yeah, that's what they did. They were like, we're done with this. Then
women and trans people.
if they had
people of color.
If they hadn't done that, then there's no way a suburban mom like me would have been able to get the help that I needed to support her, because, you know, whether you can be the awesomest mom in the world, but if you don't have systems in place to support you, it's not like I could have willed her to success by myself, right? Leah believes maybe sometimes that I could have, but I think about all of the trans people who see her and that, like, you know, inspires them, but also that need a good mom hug, right? Whose moms didn't, you know.
Free mom hugs, 25 cents.
Well, you can't say free and then 25 cents. That's two different.
Still lure them in and then have them pay.
Lure them in. No, but, you know, there's so many people who need that support who aren't, like, I think about all the trans kids right now who are stuck in, or not trans, but just LGBTQ kids who are, in their houses now with unsupporting families and haven't been able to get out and do those things. So for me, that's sort of a big thing. Like Pride, for me, Pride isn't so important for people like Leah, who get the love and support and feel seen and appreciated every single day for who she is, or most days we'll say.
Most days.
But it's so much
Saturdays. Totally hate it on Saturdays.
But it's for people who, I am so curious how Olivia's going to put this together. But it is for kids and adults and who like need that space that don't have that space, right? We've worked really hard to make sure that Leah has trans people in her lives, trans adults in her life. You know, she knows. So, like, if she needs community, she can do that independent of me now. Right. With, you know, she can FaceTime. She can, all those things. Like, she has connection to community. And for people who don't, losing that is so much bigger. Because, like, I feel like we love Pride. We like going to Pride. It's like a fun day. but it's not a thing that, you tell me if you think differently, but I don't feel like you need it to like get through.
No, I don't.
You know what I mean? So I think that's what worries me, especially when I think about all of the people who are stuck in unsupportive situations this, you know, through this pandemic, who aren't even getting that like one day to feel like I'm awesome and I'm amazing and get a hug from me or another random mom who,
We can do it.
yes, you can do it. Yes. Or
Only depends
so,
on the person.
so yeah, so that's kind of what I want to say, like that I can't imagine how hard this is for them, but like there are mom hugs waiting on the other side of this, and like, you know, that I'm thinking of them and I recognize how hard it must be to be them, and that I'm sorry that they're having to go through that, but like there are a million, and if all of them hadn't done all the stuff they had done before Leah, then I wouldn't, you know, she is literally the result of a zillion people's hard work. And I just get to be the sort of last step in that journey of just, you know, listening to those people. Really, that's
Person who helps you, who like does this with their hands so you can step down from the carriage.
yeah, no, I mean, the truth of the matter is,
Their hands.
loving her, you can see Olivia, loving her is pretty easy. And I like want there to be a space in a world where nobody is impressed that I do, right? Like where nobody is like, you're such an amazing, I want there to be a space where like, it's not interesting. It's not interesting at all that she is supported the way she is. That's sort of, you know, what my goal is for her. Do you have any goals for you?
No, I think I've reached all my goals.
You've reached all your goals at 11?
Yep. What? I'm pretty good at this reaching trans people goals.
You are, yes. So, is that an okay closing, Olivia?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah. If you're out by 4, I mean that's you're really ahead of the pace, I think, on the whole. So I mean, yeah.
There are people who turned trans at like 20.
There are people, you know what? There are people who don't really have the opportunity to figure out who they are, and there are people who it takes longer to figure out who they are, and there are people who, you know who they are and are not in a position to live that for a long time. The thing about you is, Miss Bug, I think there's a lot of people who are more capable of being quiet than you are in terms of
I'm just the quietest person on planet Earth.
that, you know, you have always known exactly what you wanted, and you have always been super articulate, and it allowed me to get you what you needed to be supported a lot sooner than a lot of people can pull that off. You will not be stopped.
I know. I'm just
No, I'm saying like in a good thing. You won't be stopped.
I know. I won't be stopped, but it says we have 0 power.
What are you looking at?
Look.
That says 99%.
But look at the battery.
You are so weird.
It's
Right now, Olivia is texting Paul to be like, this is the worst. This is the worst. Like, never make me ask Jody anything again.
No, this is delightful.
insane. I don't care what people think of my insanity.
like she said, once you've done the thing that people don't want you to do the most, like the whole world is your oyster. You can do anything. You know, it's funny because people think that, like, especially when she was little, people used to think like when she would be strong-willed that it was like, of course she's strong-willed. She can get away with anything. Like, if you're gonna let your kid transition, you let them eat M&Ms for breakfast and run naked through the streets. But that really wasn't the case.
Nope, I did not have M&Ms for breakfast ever, unless sometimes on my birthday.
I don't think you ever had M&Ms for breakfast.
Maybe one time a few days ago. Confession.
Well, I think that covers all the questions that I have. So thank you both for being on Team Markey TV. Thank you, Jody, for all your hard work. And thank you, Leah, for being so awesome. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. You can check out more episodes of Team Markey TV on our Facebook page, our Twitch page, and our YouTube channel. And make sure you follow us on social media so you never miss a new episode. See you soon, everyone. Be well. Bye.